So, I think where we left off is chapter 28. So we're picking up with chapter 29. Anybody confirm that that's correct? Chapter 29 is career advice. Okay. Okay. We're not going to say a lot more about it. We left off with, Snape telling Harry, I'm not teaching you occluments anymore. Chapter 29 begins with Hermione going, oh, but he can't do that, Dumbledore said, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, Dumbledore isn't around anymore, so, Harry can pretty much do what he wants. We find out 656, fifth years are required to attend a short meeting with their head of house during the first week of the summer term, which they'll be given the opportunity to discuss their future careers. Okay? So, Harry goes off to his meeting with McGonagall, page 662 and following. Now, who it turns out is showing up at all these meetings? Umbridge, okay? With everybody, apparently. So, McGonagall asked him, 662, what do you want to do, Harry? I thought it would actually be an Auror, Harry says. Whew, you need top grades for that. Minimum of 5 newts, nastily exhaustive wizarding tests. Okay? Nothing under exceeds expectations. And then all kinds of other tests, And Umbridge gives a little. So, she says, you want to know what subjects? And Harry says, yeah. Defense against dark arts, I suppose. She goes, well, naturally. And then she goes on and mentions other courses. And again, he's got to have exceeds expectations in them. And finally, she allows Umbridge to speak, 663. I was just wondering whether Mr. Potter has quite the temperament for it, or were you? And then she goes right on to Harry. In other words, she just blows off Umbridge. McGonagall does. Why? Is Umbridge going to fire McGonagall? Okay. So, she does her little cough thing, and McGonagall offers her a cough drop. She says, no, I was just concerned that you might not have read Harry's most recent defense against the dark arts scores. And she goes, what? This thing? And she goes back to Harry. Did you not understand my note, Minerva? Of course I understood it. Well, I'm confused. She says, how can you give Mr. Potter false hope? False hope. He's achieved high marks in all his defense against the dark arts test. 664. Yeah. I'm terribly sorry to have to contradict you, Minerva, but as you will see from my note, Harry has been achieving very poor results. She goes, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. I should have made my meaning plainer. He has achieved higher marks in all defense against the dark arts tests set by a competent teacher. Boom! Just because notice what she's telling us. What did Umbridge say to Hermione when Hermione raised the question about the course expectations? Aren't we going to be learning any actual defensive? What's the goals of the course? She goes, are you a ministry-trained educational expert? Well, no, but is Umbridge? No. McGonagall is. How long has McGonagall been teaching? Anybody know, by the way? I think by the end of the 7th book, I think is what we're told. Might be this one. No, it is this one. 49 years. We've had professors at MTSU, who should, by all rights and purposes, be in the ground, who've been teaching, this was as of a couple of years ago, 50 years. No, you should never teach that long, okay? No matter how brilliant you are, Notice, by a competent, who? Lupin. Right? Say that again?
Honestly, any of them besides Umbridge work. Well, maybe not Mad Eye because it wasn't actually Mad Eye.
Quirrell?
Better than Umbridge?
I don't think so. Lockhart? They're about the same. I would actually say false Mad-Eye Moody, pretty good. What did he teach Harry to do? Throw off an imperious curse. That pretty much saved Harry's keister, in the book 4. So, yeah. So she and, McGonagall and Umbridge amp it up quite a bit. Potter has no chance of becoming an Auror. Umbridge says 665. And now McGonagall goes and stands over her. We're told she towers over her. And she says, Potter, I will assist you to become an Auror if it is the last thing I do. If I have to coach you nightly, I will make sure. In other words, Harry, come hell or high water, whether you want it or not, you're going to do this. Okay? Why does this happen? What is this really? Or symbolically, maybe you want to put it that way.
Like a show of power type of thing?
Keep going. Between. It's not between Umbridge and McGonagall. Who's McGonagall standing for? Dumbledore in the Ministry. Okay. That's what it is. So, Hermione tries to talk Harry out of talking to Sirius. And Harry's like, no, I need to talk to him. 669. Harry says, I wanted to talk about my dad. Okay? And so he tells them everything that he saw in Snape's memory. Notice, what does Snape tell Harry? You will speak of this to no one. And what is Sirius? Sirius. What does Lupin say? Because Sirius doesn't answer first. I wouldn't like you to judge your father on what you saw there, Harry. He was only 15. And Harry's retort, I'm 15. I'm 15, and I'm not the jackass that my father was. Okay? The word they use is Burke. It's a British, not quite swear word, but it's kind of borderline. So Sirius then finally speaks. Look, Harry, James and Snape hated each other from the moment they set eyes on each other. It was just one of those things. You can understand that, can't you? Did Harry hate Malfoy from the moment he set eyes on him? No. Pretty soon after that, once Malfoy opened his mouth and let his garbage spill out, because what does he talk about? Who does he see outside the window of Madame Malkin's? Hagrid. That big oaf. And Harry's like, dude, Hagrid's cool, man. I think James was everything Snape wanted to be. He was popular. He was good at Quidditch. Good at pretty much everything. And Snape was just this little oddball who was up to his eyes in the dark arts. And James, whatever else he may have appeared to you, Harry, always hated the dark arts. Notice what Sirius doesn't say here. He doesn't say anything good about Snape, even though he knows Snape is what? Putting his life on the line, seemingly daily, on behalf of Dumbledore. Harry, yeah, but he just attacked Snape for no good reason. Just because you were bored. Notice what Harry's just done. It's because of you, Sirius. I'm not proud of it. Look, Lupin, kind of trying to deflect, trying to, ease the tension. That's what Lupin always does. Until Harry turns it on him in book 7 and just both barrels, Look, Harry, what you've got to understand is that your father and Sirius were the best in the school at whatever they did. Everyone thought they were the height of cool, if they sometimes got a bit carried away. What's he mean? They sometimes got a bit carried away. Well, Sirius tells us what he means. If we were sometimes arrogant little Burks, you mean. Arrogant little effers. Yeah. Because what are we told? What do we see James do? We find out, he hexes people in the back. Malfoy, book 4, tries to hit Harry in the back, and Moody stops him. Okay? Lupin smiles. Harry, he kept messing up his hair. They both laugh. Forgot he didn't used to do that. Why did he mess up his hair? Because it looked cool. Was he playing with the snitch? Yeah. I thought he was a bit of an idiot. Of course he was a bit of an idiot. We were all idiots. What does Sirius mean? We were 15. Harry doesn't apply that to Harry. But rather than me say it, see if I can pull it out of you. Harry doesn't have the what to be an arrogant little Burke. Okay. What do they not have? What did they, the Marauders, not have hanging over them that Harry does?
That he's the boy who lives.
Keep going.
His prestige.
He's like,
No, coming up very, very soon. He doesn't have the lighthearted existence. He doesn't have the normal childhood existence that they did. They could, go around. They're Fred and George multiplied, They're Fred and George with a lot of brains. Fred and George are pretty smart, by the way. Ron's very dim bulb compared to Fred and George, right? Ron, in fact, is the really dim bulb in the whole family. Ginny's a lot smarter. Percy definitely is. Bill and Charlie, okay? We were all, Mooney, not so much. And then Lupin says, did I ever tell you to lay off? Did I ever once correct you guys? Did I try to make you stop? There's an idea that that's possibly alluding to that's going to come up much, much more strongly in Book 7. I've got this quote on my door. This isn't it exactly, but it's pretty close. It is 4. All it takes for evil to thrive is for good men to do nothing. Okay? In Book 7, we're going to hear when they start the Muggle Board Registration Commission and all this kind of stuff. Ron's going to say, oh, that could never happen. And Lupin says, it already has, Ron. Why? Because good people are afraid to stand up. Okay? This quote is attributed to, no one's ever actually found it in his writings, to Edmund Burke, late 17th, 18th century, late 18th, early 19th century political philosopher, founder of the conservative, ideology, so to speak. Okay? And if it is attributed to him, it's probably talking about the French Revolution, where you had a lot of people die. Why? Because good people, basic, ordinary, common people, wouldn't attempt to stop Robespierre. And, it was used during the Second World War about everyday, ordinary Germans who knew exactly what was going on and yet did nothing. It was used to talk about people in the South during the Jim Crow era who knew about the lynching but didn't do something to stop it when they could have. Okay? Sirius, you made us feel ashamed of ourselves. That was something. But it wasn't stopping it. Okay? So, 671. How come Harry says, my mother married him? She hated him. Sirius said she didn't. She started going out with him 7th year. 2 years after the memory that Harry saw. Once James had deflated his head a bit. and stop heckling people, just for the fun of it. In other words, when James was a fifth year, he was kind of like what? He was a mini-me Death Eater. Not dark arts, but did what? He picked on people because it was fun and because he could. Because he was stronger. He was a bully. He was Dudley. Even Snape? What do you mean, even Snape? Snape was a special case. I mean, he never lost an opportunity to curse James. You couldn't really expect James to take that line down, could you? My mom was okay with that. She didn't know much about it. I mean, James didn't take Snape on dates with her and jinx him in front of her. Serious. A lot of people are idiots at the age of 15. He grew out of it. Now, I shouldn't go there, but I'm going to. Think of this in the United States today. We have people currently in their 20s who discovered Twitter in their early teens, who tweet something, and then later on, 5, 10 years later, that gets quote unquote discovered or uncovered and is used to destroy their lives. There was a girl at UTK a couple of years ago, cheerleader. Or a girl had been accepted to UTK into the cheerleading squad. And another girl who knew her 5 years previously, when they were 13, dug up one of her old tweets, disparaging, pejorative to African Americans, and sent it to the school. She lost her admission, first of all, to UT, and obviously, therefore, lost her chance on the UT cheer team. All because of something she said when she was 13, when she was stupid. Okay? Look what Siri says. Most people grow out of that. Okay? People say stupid things in their 20s. You might not think you do. Believe me, you do. I did. Okay? And you say stupid things in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s. Well, by the time you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you're probably not going to grow out of it. But when you're in your early 20s, when you think you know everything, yeah, you will. Because you'll hit 30 and you go, damn, I was stupid. Yep. Okay? She's making a point of this. That, we shouldn't hold people to things they think when they're in their teens. But there's one exception in these books, and that's Harry. Why? Because, to use your phrase, he is the chosen one. All right? So, Harry gets caught by Umbridge, and next chapter, Grawp. What does doesn't get caught yet. We get Grawp. Let's see here. Where we get introduced to Grawp. Owls. Let's see. We get introduced a bit more to Griselda Marchbanks on 707. I marked it up this morning, but I'm not going to talk about it. 713. Harry's in for his owls, and he meets Professor Tofty. Okay? This is Charms. And Tofty goes, Potter, is it? The famous Potter? Who the hell else would it be? Are there other Potters? And Harry, makes the egg cup and whatever do what they're supposed to do. Page 714. He finishes, and he has Tofty again, defense against the dark arts. Harry does what he's supposed to do. And then Tofty kind of goes, very good, Potter. I think that's all until, and he kind of leans forward and whispers, I hear from my good friend Tiberius Ogden that you can produce a Patronus. Bonus point. You think other students get bonus points off? No. Harry's like, yeah. And he looks at Umbridge. Boom, and thinks of her being sacked. That's his happy thought. Silver Stag erupts from the end of his wand, cantered the length of the hall. All the examiners look around to watch. Notice, everybody kind of stops. They're like, oh, look at that, Very well, Potter. So Harry goes out and he looks at Umbridge. Okay. And he thinks, I just got an outstanding. That's what he needs, right? No, he exceeds expectations, right? So, fails divination, find out. Hagrid gets attacked during astronomy. McGonagall gets blasted. And 727. He has his little vision. He sees Lord Voldemort. He sees Harry. Hermione says you need to go to the hospital wing. 732. He wants to go talk to McGonagall. McGonagall's wounded, etc., etc. 732, 733. What does Hermione finally say to Harry? And this has kind of been building. Harry's like, I gotta rescue Sirius. He's being held in the Department of Mysteries at the Ministry of Magic. I saw it. And she's like, Harry, it's a dream. You don't know what you saw. What else does she say? No, she knows she can't dissuade him. Okay? 732. Harry's thinking, how are we going to get there? She's like, Harry, think, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The Ministry of Magic's got to be full of workers. How would Voldemort and Sirius have gotten in there without being seen? They're probably the two most wanted wizards in the world. You think they could get into a building full of aurors undetected? I don't know. He used an invisibility cloak or something. Anyway, the department. Harry, you've never been there. You've dreamed. They're not normal dreams. Ron, he's got a point, Hermione. But this is so unlikely. What is her point? It stretches the realm of possibility. And then she finally says it. Middle of 733. This isn't Harry, this isn't a criticism, please. You do, ... pause, sort of, pause, pause. You've got a bit of a saving people thing. Meaning, what is that saving people thing called in our world? You have a Messiah complex. What does Messiah mean? The chosen one, the anointed one, is what that means. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, come on, Harry. Last year, the tournament, in the lake. What else? Cedric's body, you could say. Year before that, Jenny. Year before that, you had to save Peter Pettigrew. Year before that, you had to save Jenny. Year before that, you had to save the Philosopher's Stone. Come on, Harry. You're... All right. So, Voldemort knows you, Harry. He took Jenny. Why? Because he knew that would draw you down. Harry, you don't get it. 734. I'm not having nightmares. I'm not just dreaming. What do you think all the occlumency was for? Kind of interesting that he asked that question because he doesn't seem to really understand what the question implies. Because they're real, Hermione. No, that's not why. He doesn't see what the occlumency really means about this connection. All right? So, Hermione can't persuade him, so what does she get him to do instead? Get some proof. How can we do that? Can't use a fireplace anymore, right? Flu networks being looked at, watched, except for one place, Umbridge's office. Okay. So they go in. Harry, dials up number 12, Grimmauld Place. Calls Creature. Calls Sirius first. Creature's like, he's not here. Nobody here but Creature. 7:41. Harry, where is Sirius gone? Creature has noticed. Has he gone to the Department of Mysteries? In a court setting, that would be called what? Leading on the witness. Okay? So what does Creature say? Master doesn't tell me where he's going. Notice Creature doesn't say no. Nor does he say yes. Harry infers from Creature's response. Why does Harry infer? Because he infers the answer he wants. All right? Umbridge shows up. Snape shows up. Why does Snape show up? She wants Viritus serum. She wants to shoot up Harry with truth serum. And he's like, I don't have any. You used my last store on Potter before. She's like, well, get some more. He says, okay, I'll make some more, but it'll take a month. You got to have some now. Snape goes out. Harry's trying to get his attention. He's trying to, mentally. Sirius is in the Department of Mysteries. Voldemort has it because he knows that Snape can do legilimency, right? And he doesn't have to use words. So Harry finally uses code. He's got Padfoot. He's got Padfoot at the place it's hidden. And he's like, what? Umbridge, what? So what does Umbridge finally do? She's going to use Cruciatus. She's going to torture it out of him. Okay? What Cornelius doesn't know won't hurt him because Hermione says, no, you can't do that. It's illegal. Like everything else she's been doing isn't. Okay? Harry, it was you who ordered the Dementors. In other words, Dumbledore's logic was unassailable. Back in the hearing. If there were Dementors in Little Winging, and if the Dementors are under the control of Ministry of Magic, someone from the Ministry of Magic must have sent Dementors. Okay? Somebody had to act, top of 747. They were all bleeding about silencing you somehow, discrediting you, but I was the one who actually did something. Only you wriggled out of that one, didn't you, Potter? Not today, though. Christ! Okay? And so Hermione says, no, we got to stop it. We've got to stop this, Harry. We have to tell her the truth. And the truth is, what? Not the truth, right? It's hidden. It's hidden where? It's in the Forbidden Forest. Why does Hermione suggest they go to the Forbidden Forest? What does she think is going to save them somehow? Notice, has she planned all this out? Nope. She's flying by the seat of her pants. She does know one thing is in the forest. What? Grop. And there's some weird connection between Grop and Hermione, or Hermione, as he calls her. So they go out there, and Grop shows up, and who else? Where do we last see Umbridge? Being held up in the air and ridden off into the depths of the forest by all the centaurs. Very ominous, you know. So, Harry, Ron, and Hermione decide they're going to go off to the Department of Mysteries. Who else decides they're going with them? Ginny, Neville, and Luna. Why? Well, they're with them off in the forest, first of all, because they were all involved in the thing. Why else? Harry says, you guys aren't coming. This doesn't involve you. But it doesn't involve Ron and Hermione either. So why should they go? Why do they argue they should go? They were in Dumbledore's army. Harry kind of trained them. In other words, if that meant anything, this is what it meant. Okay? So, how do they get there? Thestrals, which we've been introduced to previously when Hagrid comes back to school. What are thestrals?
They're dark horse-like bony horses that you can't see unless you've seen someone die.
They're dark horse-like things that you can't see unless you've seen someone die. Is it that you can? Do you just have to see someone die in order to see them? There's more to it than that. Seemingly, let me put it this way. There's more to it than that. Okay? Why? Did Harry see him at the beginning of the school year? Or let me put it this way. Did Harry see them at the end of the previous school year? No mention of it. He does see them at the beginning of this school year. He doesn't know what they are. Okay? Why doesn't he see them his second year? Or his third year? Or his fourth year? Who's he seen die? And his mother. So why does he only see them after he sees Cedric die? See, this is something Rowling had to kind of explain in interviews, and then later on, I believe someone told me she deals with it in Pottermore. Oh, you have to process it. You have to understand what really happened. Okay. The third book. He goes deeper and deeper into his memories. He hears his mother. He sees his mother. He sees the flash of green light when his mother is killed. He should see it at the beginning of the fourth book. But he doesn't. It's a flaw. It's a conceptual flaw. She hasn't worked everything out. I really hope at some point she'll come out with a revised edition. Just like Tolkien had to come out with a revised second edition of The Lord of the Rings in 1965. Okay? That's the text we all read. We don't read the first edition text. We read the revised second edition text. There are minor changes, right, which Tolkien talks about in the foreword to the second edition. And even there he says, and there are still other errors, but I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to let other people see if they can find them. Okay? So they go off to the Department of Mysteries. Okay? And they go into a couple different rooms. What are the rooms they go into? They don't go into every room, do they? What's the first one they go into? Let me see here. They go into one dark room, 771. After the darkness of the first room, the lamps hanging low on golden chains from the ceiling gave the impression this long rectangular room was much brighter, etc. The place was empty except for some desks and a big old tank with green things in it. What are the green things? Brains. So this is the brain / mind room, right? Because consciousness and the brain, it's a mystery, okay? So they go into there. Harry says, let's get out of here. This isn't right. So there's other doors. They go into another one. And Harry puts a big old, X on a door. Or Hermione makes a big old X on a door so that, they know not to try it into that one again. They go into another room. This room's larger than the other one. And there's a big old stone pit down at the bottom, right? Stairs, steps leading down, kind of like the courtroom Harry was tried in. So this one they go into, and it's shaped like this. They go down, and then there's archway, go down, and then you have steps going up the other side. And you have this archway like this, and hanging from the archway is a curtain over this. They go in, and Harry says, "Who's there?" No answering voice, but whatever this veil is, it's moving. There's no air moving in the room, but the veil is moving. Hermione, careful. Harry goes down the benches till he reaches the bottom. He goes to the dais. He walks all the way around it. It's the same all the way around. Serious? He had the strangest feeling there was someone standing right behind the veil on the other side. He goes around. There's nobody there. Hermione, let's go. This isn't right, Harry. Come on, let's go. She sounds scared. More scared than she'd been in the room with the brains. Let's go, Harry. Okay. He just heard like a whispering. What are you saying? Nobody's talking, Harry, says Hermione, moving down to him. Why? She's going to grab him and pull him out of there. Someone's whispering behind her, he says, looking at the veil. I'm here, mate, says Ron on the other side of the archway. Can't anyone else hear it? Luna, I can hear them too. There are people in there. And she points to this. Hermione, what do you mean in there? 774. There isn't any in there. It's just an archway. There's no room for anyone to be in there. What did Hermione not look into that Harry and Ron did? Book 1, the mirror. Question. What would Hermione have seen? See, Ron sees himself alone. All these honors, awards and stuff. Harry sees himself surrounded by his family. But there's no in there, right? In the mirror. And yet when Harry does this, when Harry turns around and looks behind, then he notices the woman now has tears. He does this, and she's smiling and has tears, and now waving. The perception is she now realizes that he sees her. Okay? Harry, stop it. Come away. We're supposed to be here for Sirius. Brings him back to reality. Sirius. Yeah. Mesmerized at the continuously swaying veil. Why? What room is this? This is death. What's the veil? It's an old biblical concept. The veil separating life from death. Sometimes the veil is described as this, our bodies. Okay. Read Nathaniel Hawthorne's, when I teach Intro to Lit, we do Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Minister's Black Veil, which is all about a minister who gets up one morning and puts on a black piece of cloth like this and just wears it, like this, over his face so nobody can see his face. He does that one morning and wears it till he dies. Never takes it off. Fiancé leaves him, etc., etc. Okay? And he says, what if I wear this veil until the veil is lifted that separates us from death, Think, the Wizard of Oz. The veil gets pulled back, and what do we see? The Wizard of Oz isn't the Wizard of Oz. He's a guy, turning. Okay? The veil is the thing that covers us, that separates us from the real reality, so to speak. Notice, Harry is mesmerized. He's drawn to this thing. He wants to do what? Pull the veil back. And notice, here he hears voices, and who else does? Luna. Luna. Looney Lovegood. Everybody thinks she's crazy. Okay? And we're going to have them talk about this in a moment. Why is it Hermione saying, Harry, let's get the hell out of here? Why isn't it Ron? Why isn't it Neville? Why isn't it Ginny? It's Hermione. What's real for Hermione? What's really real?
Things that are written.
Louder?
Things that are written.
Things that are written. What else? Mortality. I'm going to hold that one in abeyance. I'm going to, question that one. How does Hermione know what's real? If it's happened before, meaning if it's something that the sensory perceptions can evaluate. Can it be touched? Can it be evaluated? Something she can apply her brain and logic to. Hermione, for lack of a better phrase, is what's called a logical positivist. Okay? That is, only the things that can be objectively quantified or verified are what is real. Okay? That's why she's so good at spells and such. It's all about what? No, Ron, you're saying that wrong. It's got to be Wingardium Leviosa. You got to get that pronunciation on the right syllable. Ron's just like Wingardium Leviosa. Doesn't really matter. Just say the damn word, Okay? What's her problem here? Explain death. Is death merely the absence of life? You're alive, you're dead. Okay, what happens to the you that's the you in the body at death? Who knows? Theologians say they know. Various religions say they know. Hamlet calls death the born from whose undiscovered country no one returns. And that puzzles the will. That's why he doesn't commit suicide. What lies beyond the door? Because, if death is like this door, we don't get the window. I can't go, look safe. I can't take a peek. You don't know. Though, Dumbledore, book 1, said what? About death. Death is but the next great adventure to the well-organized mind. If the mind is organized, if it has its priorities all set in place, then death is what? Nothing to be feared. That idea, by the way, is not original to J.K. Rowling. It's from Plato, 500 BC. When Socrates is getting ready, to drink the hemlock, okay? If you don't know the story, Socrates was brought up on false charges. He was charged with, being a heretic because the senator said he was an atheist. He's like, I'm not an atheist. I teach there's one God. How can that be atheism? Okay, so I don't believe in Zeus, in Hera, and all of those. Okay? He led the people astray. He led the youth astray. I don't lead the youth astray. I teach them to ask questions. His bumper sticker on the back of his butt as you walked around, question authority. In other words, he asked questions the Senate didn't like. All right? So they sentenced him to death. He's like, fine, I'll die. And he's getting ready to drink the hemlock, and his followers, Plato among them, are trying to get him to leave. We bought off the guards, you can leave. He says, no, I can't leave Athens. Athens is life, etc. And they're like, but you're going to die. Have you guys not learned anything from all the years you followed me? What do you fear? And he says, you fear things you know, right? If somebody's standing there and they're pointing a sword at your throat, yes, you fear that because all they have to do is move a little bit and then you're dead. But he says, death you shouldn't fear. Why not? It's the unknown. Why do you fear things you don't know? What's outside this door right now? Hallway. What else is outside that door? We don't know. God forbid, okay? God literally forbid, but there could be somebody coming up an elevator right now armed with a semi-automatic rifle. It's happened before at universities across the country and high schools. Could happen. Doesn't mean it is. We don't know whether that's happening. If it were, do you want to go out? No. But we don't know that it is. So does that make you cringe and cower in fear here? You don't know. That's what death is. You don't know is what the idea is. And Hermione's lack of knowing is what scares the hell out of her. Okay? Notice, Harry hears something, Luna hears something. Hermione doesn't hear it. That's a problem for her. Okay? So, what do you reckon that arch was, Harry asks. I don't know, but whatever it was dangerous, says Hermione. And notice we're told, inscribing a fiery cross. Here it's not described as an X. Kind of interesting. Okay? Almost like she's baptizing that door. Like, Jesus save us, you know. So, they go to another door. It's locked. Well, that's not it. They try a bunch of things. Doesn't open. Okay? Ron, wonder if that's the one. What door is that, by the way? Dumbledore tells us later. That's the love door. Okay? They go in another one. What other rooms do they go into? They go into time. Okay? They go into space. So we have time, space, death, love, consciousness, mind, you know. All of these are mysteries. Explain, really, space. I like reading articles about, astrophysics and stuff. Because they're cool. Because so much of it is sheer, utter conjecture. There's a famous astrophysicist at Harvard. He's one of the guys who, a couple of years ago, this strange thing entered the solar system and then zipped right out again, called Oumuamua. He theorizes it was actually a spaceship from another solar system, another galaxy. He has no real hard scientific proof. He came out with an article the other day, printed in a refereed journal. Okay, he's a theoretical astrophysicist, and he says, we and everything in our world are all a simulation of an advanced alien species. We're part of a computer game. And people take this stuff totally seriously, right? Because he's a theoretical astrophysicist, right? So, they finally find, the prophecy room, okay? And they find the prophecy, top of 780. SPT to APWBD, Dark Lord and question mark. And then other shapes show up. Beyond the veil. Who shows up? Death Eaters. Who shows up? Who do you know is going to be the first one to speak? Malfoy. Sneaky little Lucius Malfoy. All right? So, they battle the Death Eaters. And notice, they do a pretty damn good job of it. In other words, way to go, Harry. Good teacher. Who do we even see do a good job? So Harry's got it. They fight and, battle them off and such. We see the one Death Eater go into the, they're in the time room and the time thing comes over his head and he goes, whoop, shrinks down to a baby, back to a man, and down to a baby, such. They finally end up in this room. Harry's about to get captured, and he does what with the prophecy? Throws it to Neville. Right? Notice what doesn't happen to Neville. What happened to Broderick Bode when he attempted to take the prophecy? He was confunded. Why? Because it has a confundus charm on it? No, because the only people who can handle the prophecy are whom? The people the prophecy is about. Okay? So how come Neville can handle it and not get confunded? Bingo. The prophecy could have been about Neville when it was originally delivered. That's why it's Sybil, S, whatever it is, T, Sybil Trelawney to Albert, Brian Percival, Wolfric, whatever his initials are, to Albus Percival, I got the initials all wrong the other day, Albus Percival, Wolfric, Brian Dumbledore, Dark Lord, we know it's about him, and question mark. Why? Because it never said. So why, we could jump way forward, is about Harry. Because Voldemort chose Harry. Okay? So, beyond the veil, who gets killed? Sirius. Now, when this book was written, I don't know how old you guys are, when this book was written and it was announced that she had just finished it, Rowling said in an interview, she cried. She came downstairs to her husband just in tears. He's like, what happened? She said, he's dead, he's dead. I killed him. And she was inconsolable. I remember when my kids were reading, because they were, this was 2003. 2003 this one was published. 357. My eldest at that time was 11. The next oldest was 9. And they were, they read the sucker one sitting, overnight, 24 hours. I mean, they're Harry Potter nerds. My youngest one wouldn't even, he'd read them out of order just to, kind of flip the bird at us. And they knew, we'd like, don't tell us. No, just shh. Because I was teaching this book that summer. We bought the books in London. Kids got the books in London and stuff. So, Sirius dies. How do we know he dies? He goes through the veil. Harry goes around the back, and he's not there. But Hermione said there's no there. So where did he go? Is this some kind of ray beam that, dissolves your 36? The only one he ever feared. Okay? So there's Bellatrix Lestrange, who killed her cousin. And Harry goes after her. 8:10. She calls out, come out, little Harry. Okay. Oh, did you love him, little baby Potter? And Harry stands up. They're down in the atrium now. They've gone out of the Department of Mysteries. And he fires Crucio. Hatred rose in Harry such as he had never known before. Bellatrix screams. The spell knocks her off her feet. But then she gets up. Never used an unforgivable curse before, have you, boy? You need to mean them, Potter. You need to really want to cause pain, to enjoy it. And then notice what she says. Righteous anger won't burn me for long. That's her interpretation. She says, Harry, the anger you feel right now, totally justified. It's righteous anger. She goes, no, that's not very me. Here, let me show you how it's really done. Harry already knows how it's really done, right? Voldemort's crucioed him twice. Okay? So, She tries. Harry protects himself. We hear Voldemort's voice. Harry says, the prophecy's been destroyed. 8:13. Dumbledore. It was foolish to come here tonight, Tom. Why is it calm, Tom? Not scared of you, why else? Teacher-student thing, and it puts him in his place. I understand why she didn't. I wish Rowling had him go, it was foolish to come here tonight, Tommy. Use that little diminutive, like, I remember you when you were 11. The oars are on their way, by which time I shall be gone, and you dead, Voldemort tries to hit him. Dumbledore, we're told, flicks his wand. It's, it's like, yeah, go away, you little gnat. Okay? You do not seek to kill me, Dumbledore? 8:14. We both know there are other ways of destroying a man, Tom. Merely taking your life would not satisfy me. That means what? Death is too good for you. So if death is too good for him, what's he got coming? What's worse than death? I honestly don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Notice Dumbledore is saying death isn't the worst thing that can happen. What do we know Voldemort is most afraid of, though? Death. It's the thing he fears the most. But what if you're right there on the cusp of death and frozen? Where you're neither here nor there. And I don't mean like nearly headless Nick. Neither here nor there. There is nothing worse than death. You are quite wrong. Okay? So, Voldemort takes possession of Harry by Nagini, so to speak. Not literally. 8:16. When the creature spoke, it used Harry's mouth, so that in his agony he felt his jaw move. Kill me now, Dumbledore. Blinded and dying, every part of him screaming for release, Harry felt the creature use him again. If death is nothing, Dumbledore, kill the boy! Harry, let the pain stop. Let him kill us. End it, Dumbledore. Death is nothing compared to this. And I'll see Sirius again. What? How come Harry thinks he's going to see Sirius again? Just simple logical question. Based upon the information we're given in the books about Harry's, religious beliefs. Who says that kind of thing? I'm going to see so-and-so again when I die. People who believe in heaven, not the logical positivists, because there is nothing after this, okay? If you've read Philip Pullman's, his Dark Materials series, first two books are great. Third book is utter blah. Okay? Because he creates this whole world. I was teaching those books when they were individually coming out. I told my students at the time, this guy's Tolkien-esque in his writing. I mean, beautiful prose, wonderfully created world and all that. But when he gets to his third book, his ideology completely takes over. And his ideology is, there is no heaven and hell. This is all there is. And when we die, our atoms just dissipate. And what we think of as consciousness is just no more. And he writes the entire series of books because he hates C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia. He tells us this in interviews. He wanted to counter what C.S. Lewis wrote. And so he writes his Dark Materials. It's essentially his words, not mine, his rewriting of John Milton's Paradise Lost. John Milton writes Paradise Lost, he says, in the opening of the book, to justify the ways of God to man. In other words, to explain why God acts the way he does and why the world is the way it is. It's to justify or to answer the problem of pain. If God is so good and so powerful, why is there evil in the world? That's what Milton is attempting to explain in a very, very long poem. Okay? Pullman tells us he's of the devil's party. He thinks the devil is the hero in that story. Okay? And so what he does is he kills God. It's an image of God. It's a false kind of image of whatever one thinks of God, okay? Kind of a thing. But he has, things just dissipate at the end when you die. Dumbledore, Harry definitely don't accept that. I think even Voldemort doesn't accept that. So Harry here says, I'll see Sirius again, implies he believes in some kind of afterlife. Nothing in the books that we've been told tell us that Harry has this kind of religious belief. Because that is a religious belief, right? After all, what are we told about the Dursleys at the beginning of the first book? They're perfectly normal, thank you very much. They don't hold to anything strange or mysterious. Okay. Believe in the afterlife. You have to admit, it's kind of out of the ordinary. Why? Because we don't see it. This is what we see. It's why it takes faith. Okay? And as Harry's heart was filled with emotion, like the Grinch's on Christmas morning at the top of Mount Crumpet, and his heart grows 10 times larger that day, okay, the creature's coils loosened and the pain was gone. Third book, Harry's really pissed at Hagrid because he overhears the conversation in the Three Broomsticks. And when he gets back to Hogwarts, he wants to go talk to Hagrid about why Hagrid never told him about Sirius. And Ron and Hermione are like, no, Harry, no, let's not do it. He goes, no, let's go down. And he goes down, and what does he find out? Buckbeak's going to go up for trial. He goes down, loaded for bear, and he sees Hagrid is suffering. And what happens? That hatred that he's feeling, that anger, can't live inside him at the same time as he feels compassion, which is pity and mercy bound together for Hagrid. And which one wins? The pity and mercy. Okay? So, Voldemort's defeated. Fudge shows up. Dumbledore says, what are you doing here? He says, I'm here. I'm ready to fight your men and return and win again. In other words, bring it on, little man. He says, but you saw Voldemort with your own eyes. Okay? Are we done with our silly little games? It's a year later now. He says, I got to send Harry back to Hogwarts. So we get the lost prophecy. He sends Harry back to his office. Takes him a few minutes. I think it's like about a half an hour before Dumbledore finally comes back. 8:23. Dumbledore says to Harry, there's no shame in what you're feeling, Harry. On the contrary, the fact that you can feel pain like this is your greatest strength. That is cold. That is really cold to say that to somebody who just lost his only family-like figure he's ever had. My greatest strength, you don't have a clue. You don't know. What don't I know, Harry? And Harry starts destroying stuff, I don't want to talk about how I feel. Suffering like this proves you're still a man. Notice, Harry, you're not a boy anymore. It proves you're still a man. This pain is part of being human. Then I don't want to be human. I don't know if you've ever lost someone very close to you. If you have, and it was in a bad situation, you probably know exactly what Harry means. Okay? I've had enough. I've seen enough. I want out. I want it. What's the out? I want it to end. My parents, Sirius, others. Let me go into the mirror. Let me be with my family. Okay? Dumbledore, you do care. You care so much you feel as though you will bleed to death with the pain. I don't. Yes, you do. You've lost your father, your mother, and now the closest thing you ever... Really? Dumbledore just, pry that wound and pour in the salt? And Dumbledore says, Harry, you're not nearly as mad at me as you ought to be. And if you're going to kill me, what? I want you to really kill me and to kill me for good reasons. It's my fault, he says, that Sirius died. Kind of interesting, if you think about it, because it completely negates what he said at the end of book 2. End of book 3, where Harry says, it'll be my fault if Voldemort comes back to power again. No, it won't be Harry, because Harry's not counting Wormtail's free will. Or I should say, mostly my fault. I will not be so arrogant as to claim responsibility for the whole. He says, why was it his fault? What did he try to do to Sirius all year long?
Keep him in the house.
Keep going. Think of Sirius's animagus form. Keep him on the collar. He tried to leash him. The only problem is what? You can't leash Sirius. Just like you couldn't leash James. Or you couldn't leash Hagrid. Dumbledore says, 826, I owe you an explanation of an old man's mistakes. For I see now that what I have done and not done with regard to you bears all the hallmarks of the failings of age. If I had been a younger man, Harry, when you came around, I would not have been this stupid. Youth cannot know how age thinks and feels, but old men are guilty if they forget what it was to be young. Why? Why do the old forget what it was like to be young? The older and older you get, the closer and closer to what are you? Death. You lose that kind of passion, that fire burning inside that you had when you were younger. Okay? And he says, Harry, and I'm an old man. Somewhere in our novels, we're told, or it might have been in an interview, Dumbledore's over like 150. He's been around a long time. Okay? Is it? Okay, I'm not sure. So Dumbledore says, 15 years ago when I saw that scar on your forehead, I thought what it might mean. I guessed it might mean a connection between you and Voldemort. Yeah, you told me about this. Get to the point. He says, and I thought something else. He says, more recently I became concerned the connection was more than that. Okay? He says, I heard what you said about the night when you witnessed the attack. Yeah, Snape told me. Professor Snape, Harry. In other words, even though you're about to kill me in a few minutes, you're still going to show Snape respect. Every interaction Dumbledore has with Harry, when Harry says Snape, Dumbledore corrects him. Professor Snape. It has nothing to do with Snape being a professor. It has everything to do with what we find out about Snape in book 7. Okay? So, he says, because of that connection, I thought Voldemort would try to get at me through you. So I was protecting both you and me. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Okay? So, we go on. He talks about Sirius, he talks about Creature, he talks about Creature betraying Harry. Okay? Talks about Creature being what he is, partly at least, because of how Sirius treated him. 832. Creature is what he has been made by wizards, Harry. Yes, he is to be pitied. His existence has been as miserable as your friend Dobby's. Whatever Creature's faults, it must be admitted, Sirius did nothing to make Creature's lot easier. Don't talk about Sirius, what about Snape? You know that Professor Snape had, again, So, Harry says, Snape, stop giving me occlumency lessons. Dumbledore says, I know, etc., etc. They keep talking about Sirius, and finally, bottom 834, Dumbledore says, it's time for me to tell you what I should have told you 5 years ago. What should he have told them? What was Harry's first question when he woke up in the hospital wing after saving the Philosopher's Stone? Why did Voldemort want to kill me? And Dumbledore says, can't answer. Now he's saying, I should have told you. And he says, my priority was to keep you alive. Okay? So, he says, I did a charm, protected you while you're at your aunt and uncle's. And he said, and you show up. And well, you'll remember the events of your first year. He doesn't go through them all. He says, but 837, there was a flaw in this plan of mine. An obvious flaw I knew even then might be the undoing of it all. But I kept going with it. Harry, I don't get what you're saying. Don't you remember asking me? Yeah. Should I have told you, Harry? And notice, no response. Harry knows he's on the cusp of something big. I should have recognized the danger signs. I should have asked myself why I didn't feel more disturbed. Bottom of 838. Do you see, Harry? Do you see the flaw in my brilliant plan? I don't. I cared about you too much. He doesn't say what his brilliant plan is. He just says, the flaw in my brilliant plan is I came to love you too much. As just a person, as an 11-year-old boy who's had to face up to much, much more than any 11-year-old boy should have to face up to. Top of 839. What did I care if numbers of nameless and faceless people and creatures were slaughtered in the vague future? What's that mean, in the vague future? It means from Harry's first birthday, 3 months later, after his parents died, to now. Well, what faceless, nameless creatures have died? Well, we talked about Sirius, Bertha Jorkins, Frank Bryce, and we could go back, even though most of them aren't named yet. Okay? If in the here and now you were alive, well, and happy. So he says, we came to your third year. You fought the Dementors. I watched from afar. Fourth year, you came out of the maze. You had Cedric with you. And now tonight, I know you've long, 839, been ready for the knowledge I've kept in you for so long. Voldemort tried to kill you because of a prophecy. Notice, the sun had risen fully by now. Why? What color light does the sun give off early in the morning when it first rises? It's reddish gold. What's Harry's house? Red and gold. It's the same color we're going to see into book 7, last chapter, just before the epilogue, when the sun comes up in the morning. Okay? And he tells Harry the prophecy. Actually, he shows Harry the prophecy. Pulls out the pensive, and there it comes. The one with the power, 841, to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born at the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. And it gets replayed. Right? What does that mean? It means that the person who has the only chance of conquering Lord Voldemort for good was born at the end of July, nearly 16 years ago. Boy would be born to parents who had already defied Voldemort 3 times. Are we ever told how Harry's parents, defied Voldemort 3 times? No, we're not. And we don't even know what that means. Does that mean Voldemort approached them and said, join with me and we will rule? No, we're not. He said, odd thing is, Harry, it could have applied to Neville. Notice, it could have. Harry, then why is my name on it and not Neville's? The official record was relabeled after Voldemort's attack on you. It seemed plain to the keeper of the Hall of Prophecy, Voldemort could only have tried to kill you because he knew you to be the one Sybil was referring to. Harry, then it might not be me. Dumbledore, no, it is you. Why? Because Voldemort marked you. He chose you. Go back to the end of book 3. Well, go back to the end of book 2. It is our choices, Harry. Okay? And in book 3, Voldemort made a choice. Harry, but he might have chosen wrong. What straw is Harry grasping at? He thinks the prophecy refers to some kind of existential truth. That somewhere out there in the universe, there is this thing that created the prophecy that said, Neville Longbottom is the one that is supposed to kill Lord Voldemort. But that's not the case. That's why it's open-ended. Okay? Look at the prophecy again. The Dark Lord will mark him as his equal. Okay? What part of the prophecy, Dumbledore tells us, did Voldemort hear? Everything up to then. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. He didn't hear the part about the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal. If he had, and Voldemort had any brains at all, then what would he not do? He wouldn't try to go after anybody. It's the old Oedipus Rex problem. If there's a prophecy, if there's fate, you don't try to run away from it. Why? Because that means you fulfill it. All right? So, Harry, why did he do it? Why did he try to kill me? Dumbledore. Because he didn't have all the information he needed. In my definition of tragedy, when I teach tragic literature, is tragedy occurs when a tragic hero, a tragic character, has to make a decision, but has to do so based on faulty or incomplete information. See, in the play Oedipus the King, or Oedipus Rex, Oedipus is missing key information when he receives the prophecy, you will kill your father, marry and sleep with your mother, and produce offspring that are horrible to the world. And the key information he's missing, your parents, they adopted you. His adopted parents aren't the ones the prophecy is about. It's the father who, begat you upon your mother who bore you. It's your birth parents that you're fated to do this with. If he had known that the parents he was with were adopted, he could have stayed there all fat, dumb, and happy the whole rest of his life. But because he loved those parents and didn't know that about them, he flees. And he brings to completion the very prophecy. So, Dumbledore goes on, 843. He says he didn't know that you would have power the Dark Lord knows not. Here, I don't have powers he doesn't have. I couldn't fight the way he did tonight. There's a room in the Department of Mysteries kept locked at all times. Contains a force that is at once more wonderful and more terrible than death. Than human intelligence, the brains, than forces of nature, space and stuff. It is also perhaps the most mysterious of the many subjects for study that reside there. Notice, but it's kept locked at all times. If it's kept locked at all times, then how much can it be studied? That means you can't go in and out. They don't study that one. It's just kept there. Why? Because the brain can't understand. Logic is, You try to base a relationship on logic, it ain't gonna work. You try to decide who to marry based on pros and cons, it's the power held within that room that you possess in such quantities and which Voldemort has not at all. Harry's thinking about the prophecy. Then something about neither can live while the other survives, so that means one of us has got to kill the other? Yep. Oh, and by the way, Harry, I didn't make you prefect because I thought you had enough on your plate already. Like, thanks for telling me that now. So, chapter 38, the Second War begins. Okay? So, we're skipping a bunch. Harry sees the mirror that he got from Sirius as he's packing up. Two-way mirror, right? Which if he'd remembered, what? The whole Department of Mysteries thing wouldn't have happened. He could have used that to try to communicate with Sirius. So he runs into Nick, 860, 861. He says, Nick, you're a ghost. Very astute there, Potter. He said, no, you died, but I'm talking to you. I mean, you can walk around. Yes, I can walk and talk. So you came back. People can come back, right? Not everyone can. What do you mean they can't? Well, only wizard. No, that's cool. The one, he's a wizard. He won't come back. Who? Sirius Black. But you did, top of 861. You came back. You're dead and you didn't disappear. Wizards can leave an imprint of themselves upon the earth to walk palely where their living selves once trod. Few, notice, very few wizards choose that path. Why? I mean, he'll come back. I know he will. He will not come back. He will have gone on. What do you mean gone on? Gone on where? And then Harry asks the question, the $64,000 question. What happens when you die? Where do you go? Why doesn't everyone come back? Why isn't this place full of death? Why? Notice, if Nick hadn't intervened, what would have happened? Why? I mean, Harry's questions would have been endless. I cannot answer. What do you mean you can't answer? You're dead. I was afraid of death. I chose to remain behind. I sometimes wonder whether I oughtn't to have. Well, that's neither here nor there. And I'm neither here nor there. What's he mean? I'm not really real. I'm not really here. How do we know? Think of his Death Day feast. Kind of like Captain Barbossa in the Pirates of the Caribbean. He can't really taste food because he's dead. I know nothing of the secrets of death, Harry, for I chose my feeble imitation of life instead. I believe learned wizards study the matter of the Department of Mysteries. In other words, you need to go look in the death room, Harry. Don't talk to me about that place. Sorry. Harry felt, 862, almost as though he had lost his godfather all over again. Why? What was he putting on the answers he was planning on getting from Nick? Louder?
That he would see Sirius.
He would see Sirius again. Okay. What was he supposing? I'm trying to ask this without giving away the word I want. That would give him hope. Hope. Instead, he says he won't come back. Why? He was ready to die. So what happens to Harry's hope? Through the toilet. Losing the hope that he might be able to see or speak to him once more. He walked slowly and miserably back up through the empty castle, wondering whether he would ever feel cheerful again. And he runs into whom? Luna. And what does she explain? Why isn't she down at the feast?
She lost her possessions and she's trying to find them
Okay, say that again, the first part.
She lost her possessions.
Did she lose her possessions?
People stole her.
People stole them. They're doing what? They're playing a practical joke on Looney Luna Lovegood. Okay? That comes later. Harry says, who have you seen die? I mean, have you ever known someone who's died? She says, yes, my mother. I was 9. Harry, I'm sorry. Yes, it was rather horrible, but it's not as though I'll never see Mom again. Isn't it? Said Harry, uncertainly. Notice, uncertainly means without any certainty. And yet, when he was possessed by Nagini, come on, Dumbledore, just end it. Let us die. And then I'll see Sirius again. But now, he thinks, because Sirius has gone on, whatever that means, she shook her head in disbelief. That is, the disbelief is at what Harry has just said. Well, come on, you heard them just behind the veil. You mean, yeah, in that room with the archway. You heard them. They were lurking just out of sight. They looked at each other, and Harry thinks, Luna's crazy. She says all kinds of weird things. Harry, are you sure you don't want me to help you look for your stuff? Oh, no, I'll just go down and have some pudding and wait for it all to turn up. It always does in the end. She's just going to go down and trust everything will turn up. What's another word for that trust? What is she showing? Faith. Faith that everything's going to work out. How do we know it's faith? Have a nice holiday, Harry. Yeah, you too. She walks away, and as he watched her go, he found that the terrible weight in his stomach seemed to have lessened. She has given Harry what? The opposite of the word that was used to describe what she felt when Harry, expressed doubt. She said, or thought in disbelief, Harry now has the beginnings of belief. She's given him hope where he had none before. Is it all fleshed out? Is it all worked out? No, it's not. And it never fully gets worked out. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else in... Yeah, I'm going to make a couple comments on whatever the day that is, Tuesday, about the very, very end, but you don't need to bring your books. I think we've got 4 days for Half-Blood Prince, so whatever that comes out to, have at least a fourth of it read.